Hey friends, and welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Morgan and you are on my homestead here in Wyoming, and today we are pulling out the big flour. I have a lot of eggs sitting behind me. That can only mean one thing. It is pasta making day. So today I'm going to use a good amount of our eggs. I was just looking in the refrigerator and we have like 86 eggs in there. We've been giving them away, but they keep coming as quickly as we can get rid of them or eat them or use them. So what I like to do right now when our egg supply is really, really high, because that will drop off come winter, our eggs or our chickens really stop laying eggs significantly, and there are a few things we can do to keep their production high, but honestly it's a little bit of a nice break. But what I like to do with this time of year when we have so many eggs is I like to use them up and preserve them in ways that we will use throughout the winter so that we can get eggs into things that we would like to use in the winter but don't have the eggs to make. One of those things being pasta. So what I want to do today is get our spaghetti noodles put together. Now I have a lot of pumpkins, so I'm going to probably try to make some pumpkin ravioli, pumpkin gnocchi, but today I'm just going to focus on our pure pasta so that we can get a lot of the eggs used. So I have some eggs cleaned up behind me. I have our big flour out and we are just gonna get going. Today should be fun. If I have extra time and I'm feeling extra ambitious, I might try to make an angel food cake as well, but we will see. If you don't know, angel food cake freezes phenomenally. And it's just like, we cut it into slices, put it in the freezer, and it is the perfect snack to have throughout the week, or the perfect dessert. Drizzle it with a little chocolate, throw some freeze-dried fruit on it, some regular fruit. It is so, so yummy. So we'll see where we get to today. I know I'm gonna start with the pasta, so enough of my chit-chatting, let's get going. All right, friends, so we are gonna get making our pasta. You can see here, I've already done a little bit. I like to do kind of a practice round, just to get my bearings. It's usually like a year between when I make my pastas, so I like to just kind of play around with it, get the right consistency, just kind of do a test batch, and then obviously if it's good, we use it. If it's not, I give it to the chickens. But that's how I like to get my pasta going. So I did my test batch. I feel confident in what I'm doing again. Sometimes I think we put too much pressure on ourselves to get it perfect the first time, but when we only do things once a year, that can be a little bit hard. So here I'm using 2 cups of bread flour. You can use all-purpose flour. You can use whatever kind of flour you have. It'll just change the consistency a little bit. Bread flour is going to make the most dense pasta versus all-purpose will be a little bit lighter, but the bread flour does give you like a nice chew. So I find it's really nice. We like it. So I'm just using what I have. So there I did 2 cups of bread flour, half a teaspoon of salt, half a tablespoon of, olive oil. And then we need to grab 3 eggs. And ideally, you will use large eggs for this. Now, I know all eggs are kind of different size, especially if you're using homegrown eggs. So that's totally fine. We can adjust the moisture levels once we get the eggs in and everything mixed up. So don't stress about that, just do 3 eggs. Perfect. And then we're gonna put the lid on and start pulsing it. This is gonna start creating a crumble. See, this is why I'm glad that I do my test batches. It just kind of refreshes my memory. This is gonna make a bit of a crumble, and then we're gonna go in with some water, and that's what's gonna pull it together. I'll show you how to know when we've hit the right consistency. Okay, so like you could tell, the whole dough was moving. So what I'm gonna do is slowly add in water, just a little bit at a time, and the goal is to get the top of the dough to stop moving and the bottom of the dough to where the blade is to be moving very quickly. Once that happens, we're gonna let this go a little bit longer and it's gonna start balling it up, but it's not gonna form a full ball. So let me just show you. Did you see that moment where the bottom was moving but the top wasn't? That's what I was talking about. And now we have, let's get that all off, our dough here and a little bit down at the bottom. So I'm gonna move this over and we're gonna start getting this rolled out. So I'm just gonna dump it all onto this board And we're just gonna knead it for a couple of minutes to help it all come together. See how it's just kind of flaky right now? We want that to become one cohesive dough ball. You don't want your dough to be too sticky. It shouldn't be sticking to the cutting board. It should just be like it's not sticking to my hands. It shouldn't be really hard to roll. If it's really hard to roll or to knead, it's probably too dry. So it really is just dependent on feel, dependent on how big your eggs are, how moist your room temperature is. So it's dependent on a lot of things, but just kind of play around with it. Gonna keep kneading for a little while. Just really work those gluten strands, and then after this is all kind of come together nicely, we're gonna just let it rest. So I'm gonna put this into a ball. That's what our pasta is currently looking like, really soft. It's exactly what we want. So now that we've been working these glutens like crazy, it's time to rest them. So I just have a reusable bag here. I'm gonna stick our dough in there, and then we're gonna keep making the rest of the batches. I like to put it in a bag so that it doesn't dry out too much. So let's get going on the next batch. All right, friends, I got 7 balls of dough. So I have 4 here, and then I have another 3 here. So what I'm gonna do is let those rest. We need those glutens to just relax, and then we will start rolling them out. So while I have a couple minutes, we're gonna get going on that angel food cake. Angel food cake is a little bit finicky, so you wanna really follow the recipe to a T, but I just need to reset this kitchen, get the KitchenAid, or get the food processor out of here, bring the KitchenAid in, and we will get the angel food cake going. All right, friends, so we are all reset. We are getting going on the angel food cake. First thing you need for an angel food cake is this pan. And I like mine to be 2 parts because when it's done, we can run the knife around the outside and pull this off and then cut around the bottom. So it makes it really, really easy to release the cake. And this has to be used for nothing other than angel food cake. If you grease it or do anything like that, the pan's pretty much ruined, and the odds of getting a fresh, clean angel food cake out of it are much lower. So just be really, really careful when it comes to that. So first thing we need to do, these are chicken eggs, is we need to separate the yolks and the whites. If you get any yolk, and I meant to put the yolk in here, but that's okay. If you get any yolks in here, you need to start over. You cannot have any yolks, so just be very, very careful. What I like to do is just use both the shells and then crack between the 2 of them. And I put, that's right, I did want this bowl. I'm losing it. I like to put the whites in a bowl, the yolks on a plate, and then dump the clean whites into the bowl, the mixing bowl. If you get, 8 eggs into that mixing bowl and you're cracking the whites over the mixing bowl and then you get a yolk in, now you've wasted 8 eggs. So while this does make for more dishes, I would much, much rather that than run the risk of getting any yolks inside. So this is a little bit of a slow process. You can, if you don't find that the shells is easy for you to do and like transfer between the 2, you can use your hands and just crack the egg into your hand and let the white, or the yolk, the white will slip through and the yolk will stay. So you can do that. I've seen people that use like the water bottle trick. Really, whatever works for you. Whoopsie. Just make sure that you are not getting any yolk in there. I will say it's harder with fresh eggs because the whites tend to hold a lot tighter. So older eggs will be easier, but I only had really fresh eggs at room temperature, so that's what we're using. So I'm gonna do this. We're going with 12 eggs in total. Oh geez, that was close. So once we get all 12 eggs in, then we will move on to the next step. Okay, my egg whites are in here. I still have my yolks here. We'll make something with those. So I'm gonna do 1/4 teaspoon of salt and 1.5 teaspoons of cream of tartar. Ooh, That was really hard to open. And I'm just going to use the half a teaspoon because that's what fits in here. So I need 3 of these. 1, 2, and there's 3. And then we're going to whip this up until it forms stiff peaks, similar to like a meringue. Okay, let's check for peaks. Perfect, yep. See how when I pull that up, there's a peak? So that's exactly what we want. We don't need them stiff. I lied, I was rereading the recipe. While this was mixing, we don't need them stiff, we just need peaks. So now we're gonna add in 3/4 cups of sugar, and everything that we're gonna put in, we need to sift. And I know, it seems like a lot of extra work, and it's a little bit of extra work. Why did I just do that? That was dumb. Hold on. But it is important. So now we're gonna sift in 3/4 cups of sugar. Let's just make sure we don't have any clumps. And this will be really important with the flour. So there's 1, 2. If you can't tell, angel food cake is very delicate. Okay, there's 3. Put this back on, and we're gonna whip that till we get peaks again. And then in the meantime, in a separate bowl, I'm gonna combine another 3/4 cups of sugar with 1 cup of cake flour. And then we will sift that in, but we need to combine those first. So while this is mixing, I'm gonna get those combined. Okay, so here we need another 3/4 cups of sugar. There's 1, 2, 3. And then we need 1 full cup of cake flour, so. I need 4 of these. This looks good. I do need to just give it a quick stir. All right, and here is where we want the stiff peaks. So see how when I lift that up, these peaks are stiff, they're not falling over. That's exactly what we want. So now is when things get a little messy. If you have a guard, definitely stick it on. I don't. So we're gonna turn this on low, and we're gonna put in our sifted flour and sugar mixture, and we wanna do this very slowly. If you do it all at once, it's gonna make a big cloud of flour since we're so full already. We're gonna add in 2 teaspoons of vanilla. I'm using just a clear vanilla here that is local to Wyoming. So we need 2 teaspoons of that. So we're gonna slowly add that in as well. And for light colored baking things, a lot of times using a clear vanilla is better because then the vanilla won't tint your, whatever you're baking. Here's my baking dish. Again, we want this clean. Do not spray it. I know if Sam was here, he always is the one reminding me to spray things. He would be very concerned about this cake, but I promise with an angel food, do not stir it, or do not spray it. Okay, I'm just gonna clean off the beater or the paddle, and then we want to just slowly or lightly scrape off any other flour that's left on the sides. You don't want any raw flour bits, and then just fold that in. Okay, looks good. Then we're going to just spoon this in. Try to keep the sides as clean as possible. I know it's not always the easiest. we can always come through and wipe those off too. And we just the goal is to get an even layer here. Oops, I'm making quite a mess. That's all right. We can clean this off, no problem. And if you wanted, you can also turn angel food cake, and I think it's called devil's food, and it's just with chocolate in it. I prefer it just vanilla, light, simple, fluffy, but if you're a really big chocolate person, you can look into devil's food as well. I've actually never made it. I've never even had it, to be honest. Maybe that's something I should try. We're gonna take this and just kind of smooth it out as best as we can just to get it even. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now we're just gonna take a knife and run it through the batter to release any air pockets. So that'll create large bubbles. And then I'm just going to any area that has like a really big spill. I'm gonna just wipe it off because it can make cleaning a little difficult sometimes. But it's no big deal, this will grow a little bit. Okay, this is going into a 375-degree oven for 30 to 35 minutes. All right, I'm gonna reset the kitchen a little bit. I'm gonna keep this out because we're gonna need it for the pasta, but I'm just gonna clean up around. All right, friends, it is time. So, what we need to do is get our attachment on. And the way you know which way it goes is there will be a dot on one side and not on the other. You want the screw to go into that dot so it's got a nice seal. You're just gonna screw this in. You want it to be fairly tight. And you can deal with as much or as little as you want at a time. I'm gonna start with a quarter just to see. I think we might end up doing a half, but I don't know. Okay, then I like to form it into a ball, and this is so much easier to work with. And then flatten it out like that. Then you want it to go very slow, so the lowest setting. And you need to flatten it enough. You want this to be on the highest setting, so on mine, that is an 8. I know a lot of people's, it goes the opposite way though, so make sure you're paying attention to the size that you have. Now you can see my dough is pulling a little bit. So it's a little bit too moist, which is fine. We can fix that. So switch your food processor or your KitchenAid back. It's gonna get a little messy. And then I just sprinkle a little flour through. I'm gonna fold it in half. We're gonna do that again. And I'm gonna rub a little flour on the outside. Much better. I'm gonna run it through that one more time. Perfect. Now I'm gonna make this one smaller. And we're gonna just keep repeating this all the way down until we have this on the smallest setting. So if it looks like it's struggling a little, you can run it through each setting a few more times. Mine seems to be doing fine, so I'm just gonna keep going down. I'm gonna sprinkle a little flour on here just so that as it's stretching, I can keep flouring it a little bit. And if you're a little more confident, you can run your KitchenAid a little bit faster. It's totally up to whatever you prefer. Whatever you're comfortable with. Okay, and I like that thickness-wise. I can go one smaller, but I think I'm gonna leave it as is here. So now I'm gonna get a towel and I'm just going to lay this out on my table and we're gonna have each piece dry a little bit. So I just have this clean tablecloth, still have the dryer sheet in there, whoops. And we're gonna lay this out. Let's see, what way does this go? As of many of you know, our kitchen is not that big, so we don't have a ton of storage spaces. So I currently have our pumpkins all sitting here. So They're just gonna accompany our pasta. And then here is our first piece, ready to dry out. All right, now we're gonna set it back on the biggest setting. Grab our next ball. And then start all over again. I'm gonna cover it in a little bit of flour, just so it doesn't stick. This will all kind of work through. Alright. A little thinner. I find it sticks or struggles the most on this largest setting just because it's trying to get it all down. All right, friends, here's how our progress is looking. We've done 3 of the 7, so now we need to get these turned into pasta so we can make them into little piles and clear off some room. I feel like a construction site. You're gonna have to mind the mess. That's just how this operation goes. So I'm gonna switch attachments so that I'm using the big string. And then I'm gonna bring over my pasta. This has been drying, and I want this to fit in a freezer bag. So I have a freezer bag laying in front of me, so I'm just gonna kind of eyeball it. So I'm gonna cut each of these sheets into smaller sheets. So that we can get them ran through. Then what I'm gonna do is again turn this on low. And then in it goes. And that's so satisfying. I love it. And there we have our spaghetti. So I'm just gonna lay this on the board for now, finish up this sheet, and then we'll grab the next. Okay, friends, I am on my very last 3 sheets, and so what I wanted to do is try out this more like angel hair connection. So you can see in there, it is really little. So I want to try it and just kind of see if it's something we like. I anticipate we'll like the larger better, but we'll see. And I'm sad, my roller broke, so I'm gonna have to see if Sam is able to fix it. I'm sure he can, but I think it just kind of came off the track. Luckily I was on my last set, so these are a little bit wonky because you can see where it was like hitting it hard and then not hitting it, but that's fine, no problem. Okay, let's see how this spaghetti angel hair, I think it's more angel hair looks. That is so tiny. I'm gonna call that an angel hair. I'm gonna leave these out, and I think we're gonna try these for dinner tonight, just why not? What I don't like about the little thin ones is I think they would get stuck together and create a ball very quickly. They make me a little bit nervous, so I definitely prefer the thicker. I think they're a safer option, but definitely worth a try, I think. Okay, friends, here is the table. So what I've been doing is I don't have that much space and I don't have any more tables. So what I'm doing is I'm letting them dry straight, and then after they're pretty well dry and they're not like risking clumping together anymore, I'm just kind of stacking them and creating little nests. This is gonna make it a little bit longer when it comes to the dry time. And then the actual nest, I've kind of just been working along, making sure, kind of moving it, making sure that we don't clump up. Just because I know it's a little bit more risky doing these because the odds of us clumping is a little bit higher since I'm not laying them totally straight, but that's fine. So I'm just kind of nesting them, and then these are gonna sit out here for a few days. So with those, all I'm gonna do is just let them sit on that table. I might cover them with something that allows air and movement, but not like particles to come on, so like a cheesecloth or something. I might cover them with that. We'll see. I'm not super worried about it, but those are gonna sit out on that table for probably 3 or so days until you pick up a noodle and it snaps in half, like a noodle that you know, or that you would generally get from the store. And that is how we know that the pasta is done drying. Then after that, we can go ahead and just put it in bags, in containers, however you want, and you have dried pasta. So that is super, super simple, so yummy. We're gonna work some of this fresh pasta into our dinner tonight, so I'm very excited to try that, but I think it's time that we get our angel food cake out. So it got a little more brown than I wanted, but it's not burnt, it's just toasty. So, and if it does start tasting burnt, let me just pull off a bit. Tastes like a toasted marshmallow, kind of. I think it's totally fine, but what we can do is we can always just scrape off the top. If it's not tasting great, I don't want any of that to go to waste. So let's go ahead and get this taken out so you can see what the angel food actually looks like, and then we'll get going on dinner and we'll wrap it up for the day. Okay, so I have one of these flat cake icing things. I don't actually know what this thing is called. My baking knowledge is very low. But I just like to run that along the outside of our angel food cake. Loosen it up that way, and then I take a smaller knife and I run it around the center. Because remember, we don't spray these, so they do tend to stick a little bit. Okay. Then the best part about an angel food cake, we're gonna take this flip that, and then you can either hold it or you can set it down, whatever you want. I prefer to just kind of hold it. Actually, I'm gonna push it. And then we're just gonna run this along the bottom. And then you should be able to just kind of slide your angel food cake off. Now traditionally you would put it this direction, but since mine's a little burnt, I think I'm gonna set mine this direction. And no one's even gonna know. It's our little secret, so don't tell anyone, okay? That looks perfect, or if I want, I can just cut the top off. But there is our beautiful angel food cake, and just see how bouncy. Ugh, yum! So I like to serve this with whipped cream, and then if you have fresh fruit, that's better. If you don't, just use jam, but it's seriously that simple. They're beautiful, they look hard to make, but they're so, so simple. All right, friends, these have been drying for a decent amount of time, so I'm pretty confident they won't get stuck together. So because I'm so limited on space, I'm just going through and making about a serving or so size nest. That way I'm able to kind of ball them up and it saves a lot of room on the table. All right, friends, let's get going on our dinner. So first thing I'm gonna do is just heat up this pan. All right, and while our pan is heating up, again, this is supposed to be a very, very simple dinner. So I'm just going to quickly dice up an onion. Excellent, and this can be not perfect, it's just gonna go in a pasta. Now I just have some bacon. I'm just going to cut it because my cutting board is little and I want this to be very quick and simple. And with this meal, we are just leveling up that TikTok feta cherry tomato dish. I think it's really good, but I like to level it up just a little bit because that's just how I am. Okay, So we have 6 strips of bacon. So all I'm gonna do here is just caramelize my onions and use the bacon as kind of the oil to caramelize those onions with. So because bacon's really salty, I only needed to add a little bit of salt to these onions, but I went ahead and got them all caramelized. And in the meantime, you're just gonna take a block of feta. I'm sure you all have seen this before. Take a block of feta, sprinkle it with some olive oil. These are garden fresh cherry tomatoes, so it made them so yummy. I did freeze a big bag of these tomatoes, so I'm hoping to be able to make this recipe throughout the winter as well. And then I just add some pepper. You really don't need salt because the feta is so salty. I find that that kind of fixes in all of the salt, so I don't add any of that. I do add in some red pepper flakes, and then we will just get a little bit of garlic baking up in order to get that all roasty toasty as well. Okay, now I just wrapped up my garlic. If you want, you can just throw your garlic in here in its peels and it will roast. I just find sometimes I get paper in here. It's not my favorite thing to do, so I like to put it in foil. I'll stick this on the oven rack next to this. Into the oven this is gonna go until everything is melty. The cherry tomatoes have popped, and then we will pull it out. So now that this has been in the oven for a little while, the tomatoes are nice and charred along with the feta, and it is nice and bubbly. So what I do is I go ahead and get our pasta cooking. Fresh pasta only takes a couple of minutes, but while the pasta is boiling, I go ahead and blend up all of the sauce. Now, if you like the textural difference, you can skip this step. I don't love cooked tomatoes, like the texture of them, so I like to blend them up into a more puree instead. So that's what I did here, but this is totally up to your preference. Then once the noodles were done, I just drained them off and added in the sauce. Then we're gonna add in our caramelized onions and bacon and give that a good stir, and we are ready to serve. I just topped this with a little bit of Parmesan cheese along with some basil, and it is so yummy. This is one of Sam's absolute favorites, but I really love it too. It's so simple, super cheap to make, and always hits the spot. All right, friends, that is it for today. In total, we were able to use up 40 eggs, which is absolutely amazing. We got a ton of pasta made, our angel food cake, and our dinner, which is so yummy. I'm gonna end it here for the day. Thank you so much for tagging along with me and keeping me company in the kitchen today. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing if you haven't already, and I will catch you all in the next one. Bye, friend.